Hello, my beautiful people. Glad to see we're all here today. Got some fun stuff lined up for us here. Start off with we're going over the iDubbbz drama. If you're unfamiliar with this, I literally don't believe you. Uh, Essentially, in a nutshell, iDubbbz's girlfriend decided to open up an OnlyFans. Good for her. And his fans did not like it. So let's see. Let's go over this and talk about it. I am a shit sandwich. Forgot to hit record. So we're going to start off with going over the iDubbbz drama, which, if you're unfamiliar with it, I literally don't believe you. Uh, iDubbbz's girlfriend decided to open up an OnlyFans. Good for her. And apparently this was the wrong move, according to iDubbbz fans. So let's talk about it and see what he has to say.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of iDubbbz Complains. This is a very special episode where I get to tackle two topics that I've recently become very passionate about. That is a section of my audience who thinks they know me, and my opinion on sex work. You can sort of see where these two will collide. For those of you who are unaware of the drama I recently brought upon myself, I'll fill you in. My girlfriend started an OnlyFans account, which is a website where you can upload amateur porn. Anything from double penetration all the way over to lewd cosplay and everything in between. And I think all of it is cool. Yeah, I know. I didn't think it would be a controversial opinion either. A good amount of people are just doing the reasonable thing and just making jokes and laughing about it. But there's a whole nother group of people who feel personally devastated and betrayed. You lied to us.
I think I should kind of mention where I stand on this. I kind of already indicated it, but it's her body. If he's okay with it, which he clearly is, and if she wants to uh, get paid to show that body off to people who are willing to pay, that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Everyone who is trying to say that there's kind of two different groups of people here who are saying this is wrong. There are people who are against sex workers in general, who are just wrong. Sex work is work. Although, admittedly, the current sex work industry is incredibly, painfully, horribly exploitative towards the workers, as most industries under capitalism are. But with sex workers, you have the added layer of almost inherent misogyny and your work not even. I am just awful at this whole streaming thing. I am still showing everyone the. I apologize for my awfulness. Fortunately, no one saw that, so no one will see it. All right, today, YouTube viewers, we're going over the iDubbbz video, the infamous one he released here a few days ago, where he talks about his girlfriend starting an OnlyFans, which is a good thing. Uh, Women, anyone who wants to get paid to show off their body should be able to do so.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of iDubbbz Complains. This is a very special episode where I get to tackle two topics that I've recently become very passionate about. That is a section of my audience who thinks they know me, and my opinion on sex work. You can sort of see where these two will collide. For those
who are unaware, iDubbbz has had a certain very strong opinions on sex work in the past. Typically, he likes to denigrate anyone who does sex work, and it's not good. But as with all things, new information can cause a change in attitude, which, even if we assume that his decisions were uh, motivated by honest opinions and not just that's what he thought his audience wanted to hear, the fact that he has, at least in some respects, changed his mind about uh, sex work is a good thing. So, unfortunately, his fans are not as, shall we say, enlightened.
who are unaware of the drama I recently brought upon myself, I'll fill you in. My girlfriend started an OnlyFans account, which is a website where you can upload amateur porn. Anything from double penetration all the way over to lewd cosplay and everything in between. And I think all of it is cool. Yeah, I know. I didn't think it would be a controversial opinion either. A good amount of people are just doing the reasonable thing and just making jokes and laughing about it. But there's...
Yeah, and making jokes that, oh, your girlfriend is on OnlyFans, whatever. But a lot of people are not joking, and that's the real problem.
a whole nother group of people who feel personally devastated and betrayed. You lied to us. First of all, I'm not your fucking dad. Like, if you don't want to look up to me anymore, that's fine. I don't want you to look up to me. First up, we got Edward.
For someone who is most famous for his content cop, where he exposes other YouTubers and content creators for the bad things they've done, it's totally in character for him to basically say, hey, I'm not a role model. Don't model your life after me. It'd be hypocritical otherwise. iDubbbz has done some kind of shitty stuff in the past. Like, again, his anti-sex work stance on some of his videos is pretty bad. But, everyone can learn, and that's the important thing.
He probably got told by a lot of people that he looks like iDubbbz, and he really liked that because iDubbbz was cool. But now that iDubbbz is a simp, now he's gonna go in full baby Wawa mode. No, shut the fuck up, you dumb fuck. You don't get to ha-ha funny yourself out of this one. You're a simp. You act all edgy and cool on YouTube and then go and film your girlfriend shoving anal beads up her ass for OnlyFans afterwards? Fuck you. You lied to everyone. You ruined my life. Oh.
Yeah, it should go without saying, but if a content creator getting a girlfriend ruins your life, or if that girlfriend going on OnlyFans and said content creator being okay with it ruins your life, you have a problem.
Oh, looks like I did something a little too edgy. Edward, I don't know where you got the idea that I was cool. Do you think it was cool when I was playing with anal beads? It's cool when I play with anal beads. Do you think it was cool when I was running around in an oversized cop outfit? That was cool to you. It's because he's a hypocrite. He makes content cop and targets people, but he himself have girlfriend whoring herself, and he does nothing about it. What am I gonna do? Do you think I should just, take a shotgun to her head? No, bitch.
Yeah, he, from a certain point of view, he essentially had two choices here. Let it happen. Agree that his girlfriend could start an OnlyFans, whether he liked it or not. and probably tank the relationship, blah, blah, blah. Or what he did do, which is embrace it wholeheartedly. That's great.
It's time to die now. No, iDubbbz, you should break up with her. But I'm cool with it. You do realize there are guys out there in private right now jacking off to your girlfriend. But I guess it's out of sight, out of mind, it's not a problem. You think these fucking retards would actually do a smidgen of research? Because, like, I did it, and I found the potential hypocrisies in what I say in the past, and it's pretty fucking consistent. The funding for the slut shirt is actually very, very low. Skanktown, USA, softcore porn all over the walls. Pretty nice, huh? You know, like, I'm not saying that women should be sexualized or shouldn't be. I'm just saying that there is the market for it, so...
Yeah, KJ, it's pretty dumb to be obsessed with other people's private lives.
It makes sense that they would do it. I would say skank and slut, but never was that part of my argument. It's just flavor. It's just flavor. Like, in the future, I'll probably say slut and skank again. I don't know why everyone thinks that, like, I made a stand. I stood on top of a hill, and I proclaimed to all my loyal Christian followers, no porn shall ever cross my screen. No woman that I date shall ever lower her standards to the point of being half naked. Let me have my hope, all right? I want to believe he's too intelligent for this.
This is something I see a lot of among pseudo-intellectuals, people who think that an intelligent person is somehow simultaneously a sexless person, when intelligent people tend to have the best sex because they're creative about it. Not to say less intelligent people have bad sex. Most sex is at least fun. But this idea that he's too intelligent to let his girlfriend open an OnlyFans. She wants to do it, let her. It's not a matter of intelligence, it's a matter of recognizing that women have autonomy, which is kind of the real problem his fans have.
Intelligence has nothing to do with it, but I will say this. If you want to retain hope that I'm intelligent, this is the most intelligent thing I've probably ever done, is revealing this side of me.
What point am I missing, KJ?
I'm okay with sex workers and girls being slutty. It has no bearing on my life whatsoever. And the sooner you realize that for yourself, the better. I wanted to talk more about all the shitty takes that people have, and this guy that we're going to watch has pretty much listed all of what the arguments are for people who don't morally agree with the situation.
So on the cons, we have everyone can see what he sees for a few dollars.
I hate to break it to this guy, but unless his girlfriend is some mutant alien, you can see whatever you can see for free. You want to see a pussy? It's real easy. I'd show it, but I'd get banned. Obviously. So everyone can see what he sees for a few dollars. Cool.
What?
Intelligent people or educated people tend to be less sexually active, I guess. That has not really been my experience. They tend to be more responsible with their sexual activity, but intelligent people are no... At least I've never seen a data point which suggests that intelligent people are, as a rule, less sexually active. I mean, those are educated people. So you're mistaking social awkwardness for intelligence. Yes, intelligent people often can be socially awkward, which does lead to less sex, but that doesn't mean they're sex negative. Uh, uh, maybe you're too young. There was a joke that was really controversial in one of the Revenge of the Nerds movies. It was actually kind of a yikesy scene where the main character impersonates another character, have sex with uh, the jocks. The main nerd impersonates the head jock in order to have sex with the jock's girlfriend. And when they're done, she's like, "Oh my god, that was the best! You've never done that." And he takes off his mask, reveals it's the nerd, and the nerd says, "Well, yeah, I've been thinking about sex since I was 10 years old." Speaking as a nerd, on average, absolutely. Point me to a data point which says otherwise, please. Because newsflash: top scientists are ordinary people. Like the point I was making was actually not about how much actual sex they have, but their position on sex negativity versus sex positivity. More intelligent people who pay attention to data tend to be more sex positive. Because really, in order to be sex negative, there has to be some other influence like religion or some other outside influence which is showing, which is influencing their sex negativity. Okay, that has nothing. You're arguing that they have less sex, which okay maybe, but that doesn't change their position on sex negativity or positivity. I mean, I agree that less intelligent people may have less overall sex, or less intelligent people may have more overall sex. Excuse me. Um, Simply because uh, oftentimes they'll behave irresponsibly. But the what I'm specifically talking about in regards to intelligence is uh, someone said he was too intelligent to let his girlfriend just open an OnlyFans. And intelligence has nothing to do with uh, sex positive. Intelligence has nothing to do, or nothing necessarily to do with whether you're okay or not with sex.
What exactly do you think I'm seeing? Do you think she's shooting fireworks out of her pussy? Do you think she's screening The Matrix Reloaded down there? It's not.
I mean, if my girl was screening The Matrix Reloaded, I'd leave her because that movie fucking sucks. But you know, yeah, there's nothing special about her pussy. Sorry, she may be banging hot. I don't know. I haven't actually seen what his girlfriend looks like. But there's better. This is such a weird thing to say, but there's probably almost certainly better pussies to look at for free than what you would see on iDubbbz girlfriend's OnlyFans.
It's not a mystery. It's a pussy, dude. And then there's no special pussy. It doesn't become less valuable the more people see it. If that's the case, my body and my person is the most valueless thing on the planet.
The internet is a forever archive, so there's no, I regret.
I'll be honest, I've never really watched iDubbbz before. He is pretty funny though. Like that was I think that was pretty funny, at least. And yeah, the internet is a forever archive. So I'm sure this is something that the girlfriend of an internet content creator definitely thought about. She was like, "Oh shit, if I do this, it's going to be up there forever, even if I take it down later." Like, this is not an argument. This is assuming she's as dumb as they are.
delete all button. That's not quite there.
I don't know why this shitty point is being made. It's sort of like from 2003. By the way, the internet, it's a forever archive. Didn't know if you knew. But when you upload something, it might stick around. This isn't done impulsively. Like, what do you think? Someone's just going to make an OnlyFans just on a whim? Didn't give it any thought. Just thought maybe I'll sell my pussy online and see how it goes.
And then future jobs, they might be a little bit harder to come by.
I think this is one of the most important opinions to highlight because it really demonstrates a severe...
2 points I kind of want to touch on here. I'm going to do the jobs one first because now she's his girlfriend, and so there's no permanent relationship there, although I don't know how long they've been together. I don't know anything about them. Yeah, so we were arguing about different things. My guess is that highly intelligent people are less sexually active than people with average or below average intelligence. I guess that depends on how you define sexually active, because sexually active in the sense that having sex with their partners, intelligent people are probably just the same as unintelligent people with partners. But less intelligent people probably have more partners overall, yes. I would say that there is probably a stronger correlation between intelligence and sex positivity, but no, that I would not say that the more intelligent you are, the more sex positive you are. There's probably there seems to be a correlation there, but it is not a hard thing. So as far as iDubbbz' girlfriend getting a job in the future, if she's smart, she won't connect her OnlyFans directly to her personal social media. Now, she might. That's certainly something she could do if she wants to continue being a content creator, if that's what she does. I don't know. Like I said, I know nothing about her. But I don't really see... Like, I don't know. I've never hired someone. I'd have to ask my friend who has. But it seems to me that they're not searching OnlyFans to see if people are getting a job, or if people have done an OnlyFans before hiring someone. And even if they did, if that disqualifies you, then someone who would make an OnlyFans probably wouldn't work out well there either. And the other point, iDubbbz has been around for a long-ass time. He has, almost 8 million subscribers. His channel has been around since 2012. At least that's when this was created. Whether he's actually had, whether he's been making videos that whole time, I think he has, but that's not really important. He's been around for a long time, and as someone who's just starting to get into content creation, I've seen how much thought and preparation has to go into creating a YouTube channel, managing it, things like that. So despite the fact that iDubbbz kind of has a reputation as something of a man-child, I think that that is purely an act at this point, and that he considers, at least briefly, if not for longer, what he should, if something he's going to do is a good idea and is going to lead to positivity in general for his life.
Lack of real-world experience when you're saying that future jobs are going to be harder to come by because of an OnlyFans account. Like, if you think this affects your standing or your social credibility in getting jobs, you are so sadly mistaken.
I know that a lot of jobs have been asking for, like, Facebook login. I've actually seen applications that ask for your Facebook login, username and password. Or at least, excuse me. It's not the Rona. Anyone, I actually had at my old job someone they put up a page or a thing asking us to uh, like their page on Facebook, and every single one, these were all lower class blue collar workers. Every single one of us was like, huh, yeah, we ain't doing that because that gives you access to our Facebook. Um, at least access to who we are on Facebook. Uh, but yeah, so companies are asking for social media, but if you just don't put anything down there, that's not going to not get you the job.
Mistaken. And I will also say, if you want to morally grandstand, one of the shittiest things that I think you can do morally is judging someone about what they did previously and not hiring them even though they're qualified for the job. This is straight out of the playbook of the boomer who's decaying in his lazy boy, who wants to tell you, no, that ain't gonna work. No one's gonna hire you looking like that. The bone through your nose? Yeah, forget it. Yeah, the stud going through your tongue? No one wants sluts working for them. And the dyed hair? Don't get me started on the dyed hair and the tattoos. No one's gonna hire you looking like that.
In my head, there would be so many other things to do and make money before.
Now, one thing that I don't think he considered there, right after I just talked about how he considers his actions, but one thing I don't think he really considered there was the possibility, the kinds of jobs that women tend to go for, because women tend to go for more customer facing job, particular things like waitress and customer service, things like that. Not to say those are the only jobs women can do, obviously, but those are the kind of jobs that they tend towards. Women do tend to have to keep themselves to a certain level of presentability and professionalism, but a smart person who knows how to take care of themselves can make tattoos and piercings look good, dyed hair look professional as fuck. So, again, even though there might be a little bit of an issue if she were to go for a waitress job and they found out she had an OnlyFans, it's not actually it almost certainly would not be a deal breaker.
Stooping to this point.
I find it very fascinating that a commentary YouTuber who's known for criticizing others, much like me, would be willing to take the position that sex work is beneath them, that they aren't on the same level as sex work.
This is probably the truest thing iDubbbz is going to say. I'll be honest. In both cases, you're putting yourself out there, and especially for commentary YouTubers, often essentially saying, here's what I think. You know, it's if it's a step above taking off your clothes in front of a camera, it's a tiny step, and it's only because people being stupid and reacting on camera is more socially acceptable than being naked, which, yeah. I am, yes. I'm restreaming to both Twitch and YouTube.
That's fascinating. I find it really interesting that that's the position you want to take. I think that'll age quite nicely.
You can add extra money as well, which, I mean, I don't know if it's really needed in that household, considering the dude will pull like 3 million views off of reviewing peanuts, but okay.
Sounds like someone's a little bit salty. You do realize that if your partner is making a lot of money and is very wealthy, that doesn't automatically make you feel fulfilled in the relationship or feel like you're
This is actually a really good point, and something that I think gets lost in capitalist alienation. Some people like to work. I know that sounds crazy, but some people enjoy working, and most people, I would say, would enjoy working. I enjoy doing this, doing the work I have to do, even when I'm not on stream. So just because your partner is wealthy, being all of these are pretty much normative claims, not factual claims, so it's pointless. What do you mean it's pointless? But when you have a partner who is not necessarily wealthy, but making enough money uh, to take care of the household, then they can then the partner who isn't making the money has the freedom to make decisions for how they want to live uh, without the burden of having to figure out how they're going to eat. So if they don't want to work, they don't have to. But if they want to, if they want to earn an income of their own for whatever, to feed their Netflix and bonbon addiction, whatever, it doesn't matter. They have the freedom and choice to do so, and they don't have to take whatever job you want. I mean, this is like I've because the statements are pretty much the topic he is talking about is filled with values, not facts. It differs from person to person. So I would argue that while it is true he is mostly making value statements, his value statements are promoting a course of action which does not harm anyone. So while other people may have other values, first of all, he's arguing you still have to be able to make a strong argument for why your normative statements are good or bad. And the people who are coming after iDubbbz for this are not making arguments that refute his claims. Like the guy who held up the whiteboard earlier. None of those arguments actually refute whether it's a good or bad idea for her to have an OnlyFans. On the ground of moral relativism, really, I would be happy to hear those arguments. In fact, if you have a mic and want to come on stream, I'll be happy to list them so we're not dealing with the delay. I have a link to my Discord in the panes down at the bottom, or you can just type them into chat if you want.
Contributing enough? Because based on your argument, then I guess Jeff Bezos' son just should never work at McDonald's. There's enough money in the family. I think there's enough money in that household. No reason Philip Bezos needs to go on OnlyFans. Doesn't need to lower himself to that standard. The world would be a...
Moral subjectivism states that what an individual says to be moral is considered by that individual to be moral. Right. So the argument is that a bunch of people who are ostensibly fans of iDubbbz yes, you can refute what others say according to your own personal morality, but in order for others to accept that morality, accept that point of view, that belief structure, you have to make arguments. What would be your argument for not allowing your girlfriend to start an OnlyFans in iDubbbz case? Because the only arguments I've seen are that it somehow makes iDubbbz a cuck or a simp, which those words have completely lost any and all meaning. They just mean loser now. Or that it's somehow wrong or immoral. Okay. You don't care if others accept it. I mean, that's fine. If you want to state I don't have I have a moral objection to this, that's fine. You notice he's not saying people who have an issue with this are wrong. They're saying their arguments against having an issue with it are bad. At least that's what I'm taking from it. You know, the arguments that people have made are that it devalues her body. It removes her or it makes somehow their interactions less special because other people have seen it. It makes it's pointless because there's enough money in the house, so she doesn't need to earn anything. These are all bad arguments. I mean, this is also why moral subjectivism is not a great basis. It's fine for if that's how you want to live your life, but if you want to convince anyone else that you're right, you have to make good arguments. And no one has made a good argument toward iDubbbz.
Much better place if people like Philip Bezos, I don't know if that's his son's actual name, but if Philip Bezos did OnlyFans, that would be a perfectly fine thing to do. I think what I've learned from this experience is when you're speaking to a large group of people and there's some dudes in the back shouting out their
Stop touching your face, iDubbbz. There's a pandemic on.
opinions like, I fucking hate thoughts. I hate whores. Women who sell their body online fucking suck. That's the worst. Instead of ignoring that and just moving on with my lecture, it might be a better idea to point those people out and say, yeah, I actually don't agree with that shitty opinion. Because it seems like me just ignoring it has led to like a cultivation of a bunch of retards. That pretty much wraps up this video. I love my girlfriend, and I'm totally fine with dudes jacking off to pictures of her on the internet. Doesn't affect me one way or the other. If you are upset by me admitting this, then I suggest you go idolize someone else. Someone who isn't a simp or a cuck. Someone who maybe just gives shitty opinions instead.
Well, it depends on which moral framework these moral claims are measured. Okay, yes. If you're a deontologist, then you, for example, killing is wrong is a pointless statement on its own. Tend to agree, although from a consequentialist framework, which is how I tend to view the world, killing is wrong is a, generally speaking, ending someone else's life is not really what I would deem as a neutral act. Like, there are certain situations where even from a consequentialist angle you can justify it, but those are the exception rather than the rule. But this was an interesting video, and I hope that it continues with iDubbbz learning from his past. I feel like iDubbbz fell into a major pothole that a lot of content creators who grew up through the tens and into today, where they got used to making edgier jokes with a little more, the kind of things that, I'll be honest, guys have been saying for a long time. But when you do it with a platform, it creates a different message. And there's two important rules to remember with edgy jokes. The first one is you got to be funny. Your jokes have to be funny. An edgy joke that fulfills the second requirement but isn't funny isn't a joke. It's just a shitty statement. But the second one, which I think is most important, is you cannot make an argument. If your edgy joke reinforces a bigoted point, it is not a joke. It's an argument. So I think what happened was he made a lot of jokes when he was younger that seemed to argue that women who take their clothes off for money are bad and wrong and immoral, although he probably didn't use immoral. And now he's in the situation where that rhetoric has come home to roost. So I'm glad to see that the ratio has gotten a little better here. I remember looking at it a day or two ago, and it was at like 100,000 likes to 50,000 dislikes. Now it's closer to 2/3, which is a little better, but still ridiculous. People are so sensitive about the people they follow online. Yeah, that was I truly hope that iDubbbz is learning how to be a better person from all this. Clicked off your girlfriend's OnlyFans to watch this video. I mean, by the way, I'm ethical altruist, which I think captures the essence of actual morality. I'll be honest, I've never heard of an ethical altruist, so I mean, is an ethical that holds the moral value of an individual's actions depends solely on the impact on other individuals. Yeah. The moral value of an individual's actions depends solely on the impact on other individuals, regardless of the consequences on the individual itself. Yeah, I can get behind that. I mean, I think that altruism is definitely a positive thing, and considering most actions from an altruistic angle is definitely a good way to look at things. I do think that not considering the self can lead to other problems, but I think this is a good place to start, definitely. All right, so from iDubbbz, we're going to move on to something a little different. This is from the Liberal Sanity Project in defense of child labor. And yes, they're dead serious, apparently. So let's hear their defense of child labor. This should be real good after for some moral arguments.
Halima is an 11-year-old girl who clips loose threads off of Hanes underwear in the Bangladeshi factory. She works about 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. She has to process 150 pairs of underwear an hour. At work, she feels very tired and exhausted, and sometimes she falls asleep standing up. She makes 53 cents a day for her efforts. Make no mistake that it is a rough life. Any decent person's heart would go out to Halima and
What was that?
She makes 53 cents a day for her efforts. Make no mistake that it is a rough life. That it is a rough life.
Sorry, that looked like a... Damn it, I had it.
Any decent person's heart would go. Make no mistake that
Yes, I am
it
sex
is
positive.
a rough life.
God damn it. Fine.
Any decent person.
Okay, I'm gonna mute this because... Damn it. There we go. When your neighborhood feminist steals the snake flag design, breaking the non-aggression pact, and you destroy half the city with an Apache attack helicopter just to force her to pay reparations. Okay. This feels like something made to make fun of ANCAPs, not support them. Sex positivity means to behave in a way and basically that sex is not inherently harmful, and that to support sex workers and people who do the sex, you know, it. I'm not explaining this very well. I apologize, but to me, sex positivity is about not, and I know it's bad form to define something with a not, but to not denigrate sex, sexuality, sex work, to understand that those are a natural part of life, and that that people who have sex are not worse than people who don't, and people who don't have sex are not better than people who do.
Any decent person's heart would go out to Halima and other child employees like her. Unfortunately, all too often, people's emotional reaction lead them to advocate policies that will harm the very children they intend to help. Provisions against child labor are part of the International Labor Organization's core labor standards. Anti-sweatshop.
As they should be. Children were used in labor for centuries, and it led to a lot of young, untimely deaths. And that's not to mention just the shitty life those kids had to lead. That was we just finished watching the iDubbbz video. That was actually the first ever iDubbbz video I've watched. So I would not call myself a fan, although I agreed with him in that particular video. Welcome to the stream, Justin Wire. Drop me a follow if you like what you see.
Groups almost universally condemn child labor and call for laws prohibiting child employment or boycotting products made with child labor. In a book, Out of Poverty, Sweatshops in the Global Economy, it's argued that much of what the anti-sweatshop movement agitates for would harm workers, and that the process of economic development in which sweatshops play an important role is the best way to raise wages and improve working conditions.
I'm not going to chase down every two-frame thing he slips in here, but this argument is seems to me like the the anti-raising minimum wage argument, because essentially what they seem to be arguing here is that if we raise the wages, if we force these underdeveloped countries to raise their wages, then the businesses who do them will go out of work, ignoring the fact that when workers have more money, they spend more money.
Child labor, although the most emotionally charged aspect of sweatshops, is not an exception to this analysis. We should desire to see an end to child labor, but it has to come through a process that generates better opportunities for the children, not from legislative mandates that...
How do you reconcile the fact that sex positivism promotes objectifying people as tools for pleasure with morality? Reconcile the fact that sex positivism promotes objectifying people as tools of pleasure with morality. Well, I don't. My anti-objectification stances are not related to like, you can be sex positive without objectifying people. Okay? Because being sex positive does not mean you view people you want to have sex with, men, women, non-binary, whatever, horses, whatever, it doesn't matter. Doesn't mean you necessarily view them as a sex object. And just because you view someone as a sex object doesn't mean you also view them as a human being. Like, if you... Let me think how I want to phrase this. You view your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever as a sex object, but you still care for them as a person and for the companionship they give you, right? So I disagree with the premise of the argument that sex positivism promotes objectifying people as tools for pleasure. Sex is a natural thing. Sex negativity is denying that natural urge. In my mind, sex negativity is the same argument for denying that people need to eat. So I can be sex positive without objectifying people in a negative way.
Prevent children and their families from taking the best option available to them. Children work because their families are desperately poor, and the meager addition to the family income they can contribute is often necessary for survival. Banning child labor through trade regulations or governmental prohibitions often simply forces the children into less desirable alternatives. When U.S. activists started pressuring Bangladesh into eliminating child labor...
Also, that's a good point. Oftentimes, child labor is still used in places where if the child doesn't work, the family may not have enough to eat or live on. So it is a little rough, but again, capitalism is the problem.
The results were disastrous. In 1993, Senator Tom Harkin introduced the Child Labor Deterrence Act, which would have banned imports from countries employing children. In response, that fall, Bangladeshi garment factories let go approximately 50,000 children. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, it is widely thought that most of them would have found employment in other garment factories, in smaller, unregistered, subcontracting garment workshops, or in other sectors. That makes the introduction of the bill simply ineffective. The Department of Labor is sugarcoating the situation. Paul Krugman summarizes what happened more bluntly. The direct result was that
Krugman, lovely. Is it good to have single mothers? No, but not for sex reasons. Single parents are bad because they're not able to necessarily provide the right kind of support that children need to thrive into adulthood. So no, it's not good to have single mothers, but that is in our current system, which is very sex negative. I could definitely envision a system where single parent households have approximately the same support and likelihood of outcomes as dual parent homes, multi-parent homes.
Bangladeshi textile factory stopped employing children. But did the children go back to school? Did they return to happy homes? Not according to Oxfam, which found that the displaced children ended up in even worse jobs or on the streets, and that a significant number were forced into prostitution. Based on the information they have, families tend to choose.
This is why a lot of liberal activism often does more harm than good, because they ignore the material conditions of the place they're advocating in. The children who worked in sweatshops were not doing so to earn money to buy the latest video game or something like that. They were doing it to eat. So if they can't do the garment factory work, then they can't eat. So they have to go to some other job, including something which child prostitution is definitely one sex work issue that I am against. Let me put it that way. So the premise is there are single mothers because of sex negativity. No. That is not the premise. Our society is sex negative because that's kind of how the social zeitgeist is. Single mothers are caused by a variety of factors, from poor choices on the mother's part, or poor choices on both partners' part. There's a variety of things that can cause single motherhood. It's sex negativity is not what it is. But in a society that was more egalitarian, there would be aid for single parents so that they could provide better support for their children. I think even in that society, multi-parent homes would be better, but single parent homes wouldn't be the really bad situation it is now. But no, single mothers are not caused by sex negativity.
Choose the best available job for their children.
Keep in mind that before the invention of marriage, before really what I should say is before capitalism atomized everyone into their own separate shards of reality, communities would come together to raise children. We see this now, even in America, in many immigrant communities where there are individuals there are families who raise the neighborhood children. Even in my white middle class neighborhood when I was growing up, there was an old couple who would watch us kids while we were out playing and stuff like that. This was super common in the past. And only since everything became a market and a competition has this attitude gone away. Not to support Hillary Clinton, but she wrote a book called It Takes a Village, because that is an old adage that is true. It takes a village to raise a child. And the problem is that we've forgotten that, and we expect parents and schools to be the only things that impact our children's lives, and so other things come in to mess with that.
Taking away that option does not eliminate the necessity for work. It forces them to take less desirable jobs. As repulsive as a child working in a sweatshop may be, it is not nearly as repulsive as a child forced into prostitution through the actions of...
Okay, I get what their argument is now. sweatshops making clothes and shoes are better than child prostitution, which is true. I will agree with that statement.
Unthinking Western activists.
Let me see. According to my stuff here, everything is strong on Twitch's end. So, I honestly hate saying this because I always hate when someone says it to me, but it seems like it's on your end. I did a speed test right before I went live. I've got like 170 down and like 60 up. So it, unfortunately, it does seem to be at your end. I'm sorry.
As a child working in a sweatshop may be, it is not nearly as repulsive as a child forced into prostitution through the actions of unthinking Western activists. The Bangladeshi story is a dramatic one, but it illustrates a general point that when children lose factory jobs, they find less desirable jobs to replace the jobs they lost. In countries where sweatshops locate, child labor is often the norm, and most of the children work in less remunerative sectors with fewer opportunities.
This is another example of the harm capitalism has done to society. These underdeveloped nations with essentially third world economies are basically where we export our labor or import products from, because we've exported the labor to them. So their cost of living is really low, but there's no real way for the economy to grow. I'm essentially the Western nations and the corporations therein have gone to these undeveloped nations or underdeveloped nations and built factories, and it's viewed as a good thing because it's viewed as a good thing because they've brought industry and built things up, but it's not, because it doesn't actually let them create their own industry that they can stand on their own. They're still dependent on labor from Western nations, and those Western nations will artificially keep things down so that they can never improve things. What's your opinion on the iDubbbz situation? I think his girlfriend is a queen, and he's a king for agreeing for not stopping her in whatever respect he maybe could have. Is pedophilia a good thing? Absolutely not. No. There is no form of pedophilia yeah. No. Pedophilia is not a good thing.
For advancements in manufacturing, such as agriculture or domestic services. In 2003, the World Bank measured the percentage of children aged 10 to 14 that were working in most countries. Child labor is not a
But what if adult and child consent to it? I thought that sex is natural and healthy. Sex is natural and healthy, but children generally are not properly equipped to consent, and often there's a power imbalance between adults and children. So even if we're talking like a 15, 16, in America, 17-year-old who technically is not of the age of consent, but in most other respects is physically developed, there may be still some mental maturity they need to do. There's often a power imbalance. So yes, sex is natural and healthy. Sex with children is almost always unhealthy.
Uncommon. Rates of child labor range from a high of nearly 27% of children in Bangladesh to a low 30.3% in Costa Rica. In the two exceptions, Costa Rica and the Dominican Republic, the leading sector employing children was service. India had the highest proportion of children employed in manufacturing, and there it was a little over 14%. Protests against sweatshops that use child labor implicitly assume that ending child labor in sweatshops by taking away the option to work in a factory will, on net, reduce child labor. Evidence on child labor in countries that have sweatshops indicates that this is wrong.
By all means, KJ, if you can refute sex is healthy, then I am willing to entertain the example and premise. I'm absolutely willing to look at that.
Is not a few bad apple firms that
I am always willing to see counter evidence and data to any claim I make. I am open-minded and am willing to have my views changed by sufficient data.
exploiting children in factories. Child labor is common. Employment in agriculture is not necessarily safe. In 1997, a child labor survey showed that 12% of children working in agriculture reported injuries, but 9% of those who worked in manufacturing didn't. The thought of third world children toiling in factories to produce garments for us in the developed world to wear is appalling, at least in part because child labor is virtually non-existent in the United States and the rest of the developed world.
I'm doing this live, dude, so my stuttering and searching for the word is expected. This is an edited video. How did you leave that in? STD, unwanted pregnancy, mental illness, and depression caused by sex. So STDs, actions can have consequences. STDs can happen even in what is considered under our current social mores, a healthy environment, healthy sexual, monogamous, only partners, committed, standard missionary vanilla sex. STDs can still happen. Same with unwanted pregnancies. So I think that we should structure society so that when those things happen, they're not harmful to the people they happen to. Mental illness and depression caused by sex are again an example of societal pressure making people feel bad things about their choices. Depression caused by sex, because someone gets slut shamed so much that they feel like they're a bad person and they slip into a depressive episode. Aside from something like nymphomania, I'm not familiar with any mental illnesses that can be caused by or are exacerbated by sex. You're dodging. I did not say anything about environment. Just own it. That sex leads to these issues, which are unhealthy things, which are unhealthy unless you can prove that those things are healthy. I did say that sex can lead to STDs and unwanted pregnancies, even in what is considered a positive or an acceptable sexual relationship. And again, I'm not familiar with any mental illness that's caused by sex. And from what I have seen, depression is often caused by societal pressures. Yes, someone can have sex with someone and then get ghosted, and that can cause issues. But again, this is the material conditions of our world. Those things aren't inherent to, except for STDs and unwanted pregnancies. From what I understand, that these are not mental illness and depression. These are not inherent to sexual activity. It is people's response to that activity, which is, yes, it can. Having sex with someone is not going to trigger a depressive episode. In fact, generally speaking, physiologically speaking, it's going to lead to more or to less depressive feelings because of the endorphins released by sex. If something about the situation ends up in a bad place, it can cause a depressive episode or exacerbate depression caused internally by other issues. But having sex is not going to drive someone in. Just the act of either inserting your penis into someone or having someone else's penis inserted into you, however you gay, lesbian, however you do the sex, it is not going to cause depression. If you have some data point that demonstrates that just having sex, absent any other societal pressures, causes depression or mental illness, I'll be happy to look it over. And Dankley asks, I don't know if I would call iDubbbz's girlfriend a queen or him a king for supporting her. Personally, I'm pro-sex work, but this issue is between Ian and his girlfriend. What they did doesn't mean shit to our lives, so it doesn't matter to us. Exactly. Yeah, I'm only saying she's a queen and he's a king because of all the shit he's getting. Not to simp for iDubbbz, but like just to counteract the narrative that he's this whipped simp who, has to do what his girlfriend's boyfriend says. I agree. He shouldn't have had to make a video about this. Even if iDubbbz chose to leave his girlfriend due to her choice, it still wouldn't be our fucking business. I agree. We should respect their choices no matter what those choices are, unless they aren't hurting one. Unless they are hurting. Okay. Yes, I agree. iDubbbz's relationship with his girlfriend is completely irrelevant to even his most ardent, longtime supporters. So this shouldn't even have been a thing. But because it was, and he had to make a video about it, by the way, KJ, stick around. I'm going to be talking about material conditions later and how they impact people in society. Because it feels like, and this video is ignoring it too, that is an important calculation in your argument here.
Virtually nowhere in the developed world do kids toil long hours every week in a factory in a manner that prevents them from obtaining schooling. Children typically work throughout human history, either long hours in agriculture or in factories once the Industrial Revolution emerged. The question is, why don't kids work today? Rich countries do have laws against child labor, but so...
Sometimes I awaken to Mark staring at me from the top of my bed. He crawls down, looks me in the eyes and says, "Material conditions." I say, "Marks, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about." He says, "Material conditions. It's all about the workers' material conditions." I say, "Marks, you're freaking me out." He says, "Material conditions. You've got to repeat it. Material conditions." I say, "Material conditions, material conditions." And I just say it until he leaves me alone. Very funny, Dankley. But the reason why I mention it is that I've noticed a lot of people ignore material conditions And I know it sounds like a broken record, but they ignore it for how things, for events that occur. As an example, our recent in America here, the primary, the libs gloating about how the turnout for Bernie was so low, and ignoring, right, yes, material conditions are important, but the libs ignoring the numerous closed polling stations in their in particularly in low income and majority areas, or majority minority, I guess I should say. The long wait lines because of the closed polling places, and particularly for the Illinois and Florida primary voting, the fact that younger people tended to believe and heed the shelter-in-place order, the quarantine order, but older people weren't. So older people went out to vote, younger people didn't. There's a variety of factors that led to the alleged low turnout that have nothing to do with how excited people are about Bernie Sanders. But all they see is Bernie Sanders, people didn't vote, so. Garcia's review has found that hookups can result in emotional and psychological injury, sexual violence, sexually transmitted infections, and or unintended pregnancy. Garcia notes that there can be a lot of pressure when it comes to hooking up, which can contribute to discomfort, performance anxiety, and stress. Okay. That sounds like a lot of societal pressures leading to people valuing. To be clear, with sex positivity, I'm not advocating for an open, free use society where everyone's just running around having sex and there's no, I just don't think that sex needs to be viewed as this taboo subject that no one can talk about. And that if you have sex outside of these certain limited conditions, you're a bad person. Like, that is the societal pressure, particularly for older people. Younger people, that those pressures are being alleviated, which is a good thing. But emotional and psychological injury, again, from being rejected after sex, or from various other things that are not the sex act itself. I don't know in what state, but in one of the Super Tuesday states, a lot of Bernie supporters said they couldn't vote because they had to go to... Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. If you get to the polling place and there's a line out the door, and you get up there and be like, yeah, I've been waiting for 3 hours, it's like, well, shit, I got to be at work in 2 hours. I can't stay here and wait. That was a problem in a lot of Super Tuesday states. It was... the two big ones were Texas and California, that I recall. But it's a problem in a lot of states. But yeah, emotional and psychological injury, sexual violence. Again, our society promotes a certain belief for men and women. I agree, Dankley. Election days should be national holidays. Sexually transmitted infections and or unintended pregnancies. Sexual violence is often caused because not just men, but mostly men, and I say this as a cis man, have this idea that they have a right to a woman's body. And so when they get rejected, they often react poorly, shall we say. And STIs and unintended pregnancy can happen even in, again, socially acceptable spaces. I wouldn't use that exact language, Humbug Horus, but I agree. I think that anyone who is impregnated by rape should be allowed to terminate the pregnancy. Of course, my opinion on abortions is that they should be available to anyone who wants them, because it's your right to bodily integrity.
So do many poor countries. In Costa Rica, the legal working age is 15, but an ILL survey found that 43% of working children were under the legal age. Similarly, in the United States, Massachusetts passed the first reduction of child labor in 1842. But that law and other state laws affected child labor nationally very little. By one estimate, more than 25% of males between the ages of 10 and 15.
Should abortion be legal a day before pregnancy? Yes. Yeah, I understand what you meant, KJ. A day before birth. Yes. Although there are probably, if you're at that stage, if you're at that stage of the pregnancy where there are probably better options. I mean, to be honest. To be honest, this is one of those things where I think it should be legal, but isn't. There should probably be other options available. I understand, but essentially the argument I would make is that consenting to sex is not consenting to pregnancy. And women have the right to choose what happens with their body. Now, that is a lot harsher than I would be willing to be. I'm not quite that antinatalist yet. But if your due date is April 17th, and on the 16th you decide, I don't want this baby, there are better options than aborting. But, the Spartan method, I gotcha. There are better methods than aborting it. But the reason why I would say it should be legal to abort a baby up to 1 day before birth, that is because there are situations where complications can set in and there's an issue with the birth. I'm absolutely willing to look at your specific case, KJ.
Participated in the labor force in 1990. Another study of both boys and girls in that age group estimated that more than 18% of them were employed in the 1900s. Economist Carolyn Moling has found little evidence that minimum wage laws for manufacturing implemented between 1880 and 1910 contributed to the decline of child labor. The United States did not enact a national law limiting child labor until the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed in 1938. By that time, the U.S. average per capita income was more than $10,000
So do you want to make that abortion to be legal no matter what, or does it need to reach specific conditions? No, abortion should be legal no matter what. Primarily because when you legislate against abortions, you are essentially you are not stopping abortions. You are stopping safe abortions. This is reflected in oodles of data. In that specific case, I draw 1 day before birth. I feel that abortion should be an option. Simply because there are a variety of potential situations where I could envision there not being a good thing for the child, for the mother to carry it to term. However, I think in a realistic scenario that there's not, it would have to be an extreme situation for someone who is happily carrying a child to term to get to the day before their due date and say, nope, I want it out. I want it gone. Because again, bodily integrity. It is the woman's right to decide what happens to their body. Yeah, exactly. If we don't have safe, legal abortions available, women throw themselves downstairs, they stick coat hangers up their cooch, they, take baths hotter than they can. And oftentimes the mothers die as a result of these actions as well. So, legalizing abortion in general is a harm reduction measure because it prevents women who can't afford to fly to another nation and have an abortion or something like that from taking harmful actions.
$1,200 in 2010 dollars. The thought of children laboring in sweatshops is repulsive, but that does not mean we can simply think with our hearts and not with our heads. Families who send their children to work in sweatshops do so because they are poor, and it is the best available alternative open to them. The vast majority of children employed in countries with sweatshops work in lower productivity sectors than manufacturing. Passing trade sanctions or other laws that take away the option of children working in sweatshops only limit their options further and throw them into worse alternatives. Luckily, as families escape poverty, child labor declines. As countries become rich, child labor virtually disappears. The answer for how to cure child labor lies in the process of economic growth, a process in which sweatshops play an important role.
Honestly, that was not the argument I thought that would be made with this video, but it's still one I understand, even if I grossly disagree with it. Because essentially, what the argument here is that without sweatshops, children would work in worse jobs anyway. So sweatshops are better jobs. So people should. So we should be okay with sweatshops because, in theory, eventually the children will work their way out of, or the Bangladesh or whatever will work their way out of poverty, and they'll all have a middle class like America does, like the UK does, like Spain and places like that do. The problem is that World Bank and IMF essentially prevent that from happening. They have set it up. They have set it up so that people can't. So that these societies can't grow. They're on these starvation wages. the people who control the government, or the people who control the factories, are not people who are in the nation themselves, or even if they are technically owned by a native of that nation. So the argument there was that without sweatshops, there's no way for the society to better itself. And I would argue that a society that requires sweatshops is one that needs to be destroyed. All right. Let me see. I'm keeping a couple of people in chat. Follow me if you want to come back. So yeah, that was a little bit different than what I thought it'd be, but it was definitely an interesting. Yeah, sounds like something pretty obvious when you think about it, but the sheer taboo of it prevents people from doing so, unfortunately. Yes, because child labor is bad. Because children are not mentally or physically developed enough to make the kind of choices necessary to do this kind of labor. Like, I mean, this video did come out on April 1st. This may be an April Fool's joke, and I may be drinking the Kool-Aid. I may be, getting whooshed here. But it definitely didn't really sound like it. Again, the spliced in ANCAP means might have.
Factories let go approximately 50,000 children.
So now that I'm thinking about it, this did come out on the 1st. This may be a joke. Yeah. Destiny. I'm a defend incest and ethical CP. Liberal Sanity Project. Hold my beer. I mean, fair enough. In all seriousness, I'd be interested to know what solutions neoliberalism has for problems like this. Oh yeah. I come from Vosh's community, who came from Destiny's community, so I've been more or less intimately involved with the way that with Vosh and Destiny and that whole drama. So yeah, I agree. Destiny is someone who wants to be right in every situation, regardless of what arguments he has to make. But yeah, I'm starting to think this was a joke. I'll have to amend that, because that definitely didn't feel like reading the comments. That definitely seems like I missed that was uploaded on the 1st. That said, the arguments he made were pretty much neoliberal arguments. So if it's kind of one of those things again where if you want to make an edgy joke, you can't make an argument. All right. What do I want to do now? Ugh. don't really have much else planned. Kind of wanted to go over the leaked Amazon memo here. This might be a cool quick video. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. Hello, YouTube. We're going over this article by Vice about the worker who was fired for trying to organize a warehouse. That's a pretty shit take. Leaked notes from an internal meeting of Amazon leadership obtained by Vice News reveal company executives discussed a plan to smear fired warehouse employee Christian Smalls. I thought it was Eric Smalls, but Christian Smalls, calling him not smart or articulate as part of a PR strategy to make him the face of the entire union organizing movement. What I think is funny is that they've kind of not entirely succeeded, but he's definitely a face of at least the Amazon organization movement. He is definitely one of the leaders of it now. And so obviously their goal was to make him seem like a bumbling idiot and thus discredit the entire movement. He's not smart or articulate, and to the extent the press wants to focus on us versus him, we will be in a much stronger PR position than simply explaining for the umpteenth time how we're trying to protect workers. Bullshit, wrote Amazon General Counsel David Zapolsky in notes from the meeting forwarded widely in the company. The discussion took place at a daily meeting, which included CEO Jeff Bezos, to update each other on the coronavirus situation. Amazon SVP of Global Corporate Affairs Jay Carney described the purpose to CNN on Sunday. We go over the update on what's happening around the world with our employees and with our customers and our businesses. We also spend a significant amount of time just brainstorming about what else we can do about COVID-19. I'm sure they sit around brainstorming about how they can deny proper PPE and time off and sick leave to their people. Zapolsky's notes also detailed Amazon's efforts to buy millions of protective masks to protect its workers from the coronavirus, as well as an effort to begin producing and selling its own masks. Remember when Amazon was just a bookseller? Zapolsky's notes also detailed, So far, the company has secured at least 10 million masks for our operations guys, with 25 million more coming from a supplier in the next 2 weeks, Zapolsky wrote. Amazon fired the warehouse worker Smalls on Monday after he led a walkout of a number of employees at a Staten Island distribution warehouse. Solidarity! That's what we need more of. Amazon says he was fired for violating a company-imposed 14-day quarantine after he came into contact with an employee who tested positive for the coronavirus. He was not the only one who came into contact, he was just the only one who was fired and ordered to go on quarantine. Small says the employee who tested positive came into contact with many other workers for longer periods of time before her test came back. He claims he was singled out after pleading with management to sanitize the warehouse and be more transparent about the number of workers who were sick. So this is something I got into an argument with my sister about here. It was a year ago or a few days ago. I can't remember. She's much more neoliberal than I am. And she was saying that if you want better pay, find another job or ask your boss for a raise. Which anyone who's worked in a job knows that for the vast majority of workers, that's not an option. If you talk to your boss about better service, better conditions, this is what happens. You get fired. Worst case scenario. Best case scenarios, well, I guess best case scenarios, your boss is high and gives you a raise. But most of the time, you just get laughed out of the office and told, we don't have money for raises. Because the boss needs to make sure he gets a big bonus this year. Zapolsky's notes from the meetings detail Amazon's plan to deal with a wave of bad press and calls for investigations from elected officials following the firing of Smalls. They also show top Amazon brass wanted to make Smalls the focus of its narrative when questioned about worker safety. We should spend the first part of our response strongly laying out the case for why the organizers' conduct was immoral, unacceptable, and arguably illegal in detail, and only then follow with our usual talking points about worker safety. Make him the most interesting part of the story, and if possible, make him the face of the entire union organizing movement. Obviously, their goal here was to prop him up as the figurehead of the movement, and then show what a bumbling, inarticulate idiot he was, and thus discredit the entire movement. Fortunately for the workers, and unfortunately for Zapolsky and company, for Amazon, that didn't work. They discussed encouraging Amazon executives to use Smalls to discredit the wider labor movement at Amazon. Employees at the warehouse, known as JFK 8, launched an effort to unionize in 2018. If you're not familiar with Amazon's efforts in union busting, they put out a video that was really, really funny. I recommend checking it out. We might do that, but it's a little bit old news. In his notes, Zapolsky wrote that there was general agreement on this point among the other attendees of the meeting. Zapolsky's notes also mention SVP of Worldwide Operations and Customer Service Dave Clark and Senior VP of Human Resources Beth Galletti. So, yeah. Those are two people very important, very in charge of the workers. In a statement to Vice News, Zapolsky said his comments were personal and emotional. I'm sure his comments in the middle of an all-hands meeting were just a result of emotion and not his real feelings. I was frustrated and upset that an Amazon employee would endanger the health and safety of other Amazonians by repeatedly returning to the premises after having been warned to quarantine himself after exposure to virus COVID-19, he said. I let my emotions draft my words and get the better of me. So Small's whole point was that he was not the only one exposed to the coworker who tested positive. So he was not really exposing anyone else to any greater risk necessarily. But moreover, his whole point was to try to agitate for better working conditions for those who are still there, which I wholeheartedly approve of. The notes also reference Amazon's concerns about the coronavirus pandemic's impact on the economy and its own efforts to ramp up testing and lab capacity, both within the company and around the country. They discuss the benefits of testing all employees, even asymptomatic ones. Yeah, because big companies like Amazon have the money to get people to get tested. That can have benefits both for the system and for our employees, Zapolsky wrote. Every test we do is incremental and is one less test that existing resources have to do. Amazon also weighed ways to generate a PR win from their mask stockpile with different and bold ways of giving away surplus masks to hospitals and independent grocers. If we can get masks in quantity, it's a fantastic gift if we donate strategically. Yeah, altruism as PR, which is not really altruistic. Another idea for giving masks away, give 1,000 masks to every police station in the country. Adding, this reminds folks it's not just medical workers who need these. No, but honestly, it would probably be better to give it to medical workers if you're just going to give them away like that, because people in the medical industry are being given masks and expected to keep using the same one for days at a time, which, given that the best practice is to have a new mask on for every new patient you see. If you have 35 million masks that have been ordered for your workers, that's good. If you're considering giving 1,000 masks to every police station in the country, maybe considering giving those to hospitals instead. Because this is all assuming these are the N95 masks that are actually effective against coronavirus and not, uh, you know, paper cloth masks. They discussed alternative ways to obtain or produce protective masks, as well as working with other companies that have capacity to make them. There are ways of making FDA-approved surgical and other masks from fabric, and we're working with those manufacturers as well, Zapolsky's notes said. The consensus at the meeting was that the CDC would be recommending everyone wear masks, if not for the lack of supply. CDC's hesitancy to recommend masks has been to manage supply, though that's a bad reason to sacrifice scientific integrity. So this is another example of capitalism creating problems for people. The reason why there aren't enough masks, because we only keep enough on hand for what the hospitals and companies think is needed on a regular day. Production should have ramped up weeks ago, more than a month ago. But it's only just now starting to get ramped up. And it's not, from what I understand, is not being ramped up to the point it needs to be. Am I for legalizing all drugs? Yes. It worked great in Portugal. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work in America or any other nation. Because a lot of the problem with drug crime and things like that is that, excuse me, that people get in these situations and they don't believe they can seek help for it, or the help is worse than the addiction in their minds. Whereas if does it include, yes, legalizing heroin, cocaine, meth, yes. Because again, people are going to do these things whether they're legal or not. I'd rather have a system in place which accurately and rationally deals with the effects of them so that people can make better informed decisions than have them be illegal, and so the only information you can get is from like sketchy websites or your friends who have no better information than you do. I mean, that's just it, KJ. You can drug yourself now. You can find, if you want a drug and have the money, you can take it now. The only thing stopping you is your will. If they were legalized, then we would be able to have oversight on the market, oversight on quality control to make sure that the heroin, for instance, isn't laced with fentanyl. So, I mean, if I remember correctly, the data from Portugal specifically said that although overall use increased slightly, that is, a larger number of people were using it than before they were legalized. They were problematic drug use dropped significantly. That is, addiction drug use and drug use and overdoses and things like that. So legalization is better for societal harmony and health than our current policies. Yeah. CDC's hesitancy to recommend masks has been to manage supply, though that's a bad reason to sacrifice scientific integrity. Amazon has also begun efforts to produce masks itself. While the company has a line of sight on a supply of N95 masks, the note said Amazon is starting to put together internal efforts for mask production, though this is described as more of a 9-month type project. So that means that they're either retrofitting an existing factory or buying or building a factory to produce the masks. Sapolsky's notes implied that the company's attempts to purchase N95 masks from China fell through. China has deemed N95 masks as strategic, he wrote. They're keeping them for optionality. They also want to use them for diplomacy. The masks in China that we thought we had probably got redirected by profiteers. Spake the profiteer. So yeah, this is a really fucked up situation with Smalls getting fired. Basically, though they didn't say it, it's pretty clear he was fired because he was agitating for organization, unionization at least his warehouse, if not Amazon warehouses nationwide. And that's a real bad thing, for which Amazon will face no penalty because they are a multi-billion-dollar market, or company rather. So we're going to go into a paint stream here. Paint stream, talking about material conditions. This is a continuation of a series I've got a couple of videos out on, Politics 100. I already covered the labor theory of value in brief, and a little brief discussion on the political compass, what the axes mean and what it's useful for. So right now we're going to be talking about material conditions, and just to kind of get a basis for it, let's look at what the great Wikipedia has to say. Historical materialism, that's the theory term for it. It's a methodology that focuses on societies and their development through history, arguing that it's material conditions rather than ideals that cause events. So basically what this means is that if there is an event, unlike Vosh, I will use the text tool because I'm not good at drawing. There's an event, and this event had causes. So, for instance, the example I used earlier about the votes for Bernie Sanders. It wasn't that people didn't want to go out and vote. It was that the voting places were closed. The voting lines were super long because the voting places were closed, but also because there is there was a great deal of motivation for people on both sides, the neoliberal side and the populist side. There was a great deal of enthusiasm to have both sides go out. But essentially what this means is that you can't look at an event in isolation. You can't look at an event and think that that tells you everything about it. All events are related to what came before. So if you have, and this is something that I don't know if I can do that because I'm not an affiliate yet. I would love to make that option available, but unfortunately, I don't have that ability. I know, I've been in that situation myself, KJ. It's very frustrating, and I'm sorry. But unfortunately, I don't have that ability yet. When I do, I will definitely enable it. But material analysis is something that we apply in many instances. It's the basis of criminal investigation. If there's a crime, like someone gets killed, and you want to find out what happened, they don't just stop at, well, it was Steve. Steve did it. We have to look at why did Steve do it, because even if we have evidence that he did it, we generally still have to prove motive. But when it comes to historical events, we ignore, often what happened before that gets ignored. As another historical example, the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, which was a fire that happened, I want to say like 1911, so it was almost exactly 100 years ago, 110 years ago. This was caused by the owners locking the doors to prevent people from going outside. And then a fire broke out and they couldn't get out. So they burnt, almost the entire factory burned to death. The deadliest industrial disaster in the history of New York, and one of the deadliest in U.S. history. Now, a lot of people will try to point blame at the owners because they were locking the doors so that people couldn't get out, which some people might blame on the workers for trying to go out. But ultimately, the fault lies with the owners who locked the doors. But blaming the owners or the workers, either one, ignores the society that created that, so that so the society that made it so that workers could so that the owners could treat their workers like property and say, no, you're here, you're going to stay here to work, you're not going to leave, you're not going to do anything. And I want to make sure of that by locking the doors. It lets them off the hook by ignoring the conditions that led to them having that power and them taking that action. So the important thing about material conditions is that they affect everything in life, and that when it comes time to, when you're considering a situation, when you're considering a, what's the word I'm thinking of? When you're considering an event, a thing that happened in the past, you really need to consider what happened to the people, the places, the events leading up to the event you're investigating. Because if you don't, if you just look at an event in isolation, you may come to the wrong conclusion and think that Bernie can't drive people out, when in fact they are being driven out. It's just that there are other events that are hampering their actions. All right. Well, that was a fun stream. I hope everyone had fun here. Fortunately, I've got some shit I need to take care of tonight, so I'm going to be ending the stream now. Hope everyone had fun. If you liked it, give me a follow so you can know when I go live next time. And yeah, really good conversation here, KJ. I may have sounded a little frustrating a few times, but I did appreciate your questions and discussion. So thank you, and again, I hope to see you again. I know I've had you in chat before. Good night, and thank you.